everybody, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Amanda N, and today I'm talking about another UFO incident, this one out of Varginha, Brazil. Also, I want to kind of apologize in advance. I have a bit of a sore throat today, and today is a very long video, so just bear with me here. But after my first UFO video, a friend and editor of mine mentioned this and said it was sort of like the Brazilian Roswell, and no one really knows what happened there. So let's dive right in and take a look. Now, because this incident happened in Brazil, a lot of reports, articles, and sources are in Portuguese. So I apologize if there's any mistranslations on Google's part, or if my wording sounds a little bit off. But to start with, the incident that made this town a hotspot in the intergalactic search for intelligent life started quite innocently. On a Saturday afternoon stroll in January, a trio of young women decided to take a shortcut home through a vacant lot. In a clump of weeds, the three said, they encountered a creature like nothing they had ever seen before. It wasn't a man or an animal, it was something different, said one of the women, Katia Andrande. The being had oily brown skin and rubbery limbs, she said. 3 rounded protrusions sprouted from its oversized head. Standing out in a different way was the creature's odor. One ghastly whiff weakened the knees. As for the creature's demeanor, the 3 women unanimously, if tactlessly, agreed it was muddle-headed. When the creature wagged its big noggin dizzily in their direction, the 3 women ran off. For any of you that are familiar with Brazilian monsters or Latin folklore or even Hispanic folklore, you'll know that terrifying monsters and horror monster legends aren't unusual among this culture. El Chupacabra and La Llorona are probably the 2 most known in Western culture, but there's dozens of others, many of them used to scare children into learning lessons. So I can't say I'm too surprised to hear about a monster in the area. It could be another lesson to be taught. But this is where things take a turn for the supernatural. Word of this encounter, spreading rapidly through the coffee bars where Varginha, Brazil's 12,000 inhabitants trade gossip, would soon meld into the public imagination with other unusual occurrences. There were sightings of a peculiar cigar-shaped flying object, a mustering of troops and vehicles at a nearby infantry base, and a peculiar bustle at the municipal hospital. Goaded by self-styled UFO savants and a ravenous national media, residents rather matter-of-factly embraced a stupefying conclusion. Several aliens from a wayward spaceship had been captured and brutalized by troops from the Brazilian army. Another source, Atlas Obscura, says that within a day of the original incident, more UFOs were sighted and a creature was found on the roadside. The Brazilian military, it says, were reportedly sent to retrieve it. The Brazilian media went wild for the story, although it was impossible to verify any part of it. The story even became international news, with the Wall Street Journal writing that Varginha has the markings of a cosmic Watergate. To some extent, this does remind me a lot of the Roswell incident because the military was involved. It's just my opinion, but I think that whenever the military or government becomes involved in a supernatural case like this, it only serves to make people more suspicious and wonder what they may be hiding. After all, if there was nothing to hide, why be involved in the first place? Nowadays, Varginha has become a UFO pilgrimage spot, the South American equivalent of Roswell, New Mexico, and the city has been more than happy to capitalize on its sudden influx of ET tourism. Gray dolls can be bought throughout the city, and businesses have added alien decor. The largest and most conspicuous of the UFO-related items in the city is its water tower. Constructed in 2001, it is 20 meters tall and built to resemble the craft which was said to have been seen by city residents. To complete the out-of-this-world effect, the water tower glows purple at night. However, as fascinating as this may be, it still leaves the question, what happened? This may be a cool piece of history, but why? And is there any truth to what the 3 women saw that night? One man, Dr. Roger Lear, did a thorough investigation on the topic, and I found his research pretty interesting. If you want to read all of it, you can find it in my sources down below, but I'm going to read some large chunks and some highlights now. According to him, I believe most UFO investigators will agree that Brazil has one of the richest, most colorful histories in UFO activity around the globe. Even before the so-called modern era of flying saucers began, when American pilot Kenneth Arnold first coined the expression flying saucer after his sightings over the Rocky Mountains, close encounters of the second and third kind were happening in both city and countryside areas. By far, the most astounding incident involving UFOs and alien creatures in Brazil was the incident in the town of Varginha, in the state of Minas Gerais, in 1996, in which 2 alien beings were captured by the military. I do want to make it clear before I continue that I'm not sure how scientific some of this evidence can be considered. After all, if the doctor is interviewing citizens in the area, or anyone with a bias in believing in the supernatural, then we may not be getting the other side of the story here. at least not completely. Anyway, let's move on. Lear says in his research that the relationship between Brazilians and these beings, or extraterrestrials, is also wide and varied. It has been reported that some people actually develop friendly bonds with these non-terrestrials, but some are not so fortunate. Most UFO literature does not mention the horror stories coming from areas such as Brazil. Many times in the past, I had visited Brazil and asked if it would be possible for me to go to Varginha and do a personal investigation of the UFO event of 1996. Each time, I was discouraged by locals from doing so. Some of the reasons given were, 1, it is too dangerous to go there because the Brazilian military does not want visitors from the US snooping around. 2, you won't see anything there because all the areas have either been blocked, built over, or are walled off from public view. All the people involved with the case will not talk with you because they have been intimidated by the military, most of the people involved have moved away, you won't find physical evidence. These were all the reasons to keep me away. The more this was done, the more intrigued I became. My trip to Brazil in 2002 was planned in advance. I was to present material at conferences in several different cities. I thought this to be a golden opportunity to get to Varginha and insisted it be included in my itinerary. Even at this stage of planning, I was again discouraged from going there because of rumors of difficulty with air transportation, increased expenses, inconvenient hours, and airport problems. My comments about these amounted to, I don't care how inconvenient this is going to be or what hours or lengths I have to fly. Just get me the necessary tickets. With all that, my problem seemed to magically disappear. An army base near Varginha and its spokesman and sergeant, Captain Eduardo Calzá, who the doctor calls a sad sack, have an official explanation for the matter. Captain Calzá says he can't vouch for what the 3 women saw that January, but the activity on the base that fateful weekend, he insists, was anything but otherworldly. New inductees to a sergeant's training school went on parade, and a truck convoy was driven to the repair shop. Concurrently, at the town hospital, trucks delivered new cardiovascular equipment and an ambulance dropped off an exhumed corpse, a human body, officials insist. Sure, tell us another story, says Vittorio Passiani, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, the bearded, effusive UFO investigator at the eye of the Varginha storm. Based upon interviews with supposed eyewitnesses, Mr. Passiani has pieced together what he considers to be a more plausible reconstruction of January's events. A small alien craft on an unknown mission over Varginha crashed near the city limits, sending its crew of smelly, spaced-out extraterrestrials ambling about the town. Subsequently, he maintains, military death squads in camouflage fatigues hunted down the visitors, poked and prodded the corpses at the municipal hospital, and then ship them off to parts unknown. It's very straightforward, he says. There's no doubt that this case has become an enormous tourist attraction too, and one of the main reasons people visit the city in the first place. In this paper, it's reported that the mayor intended to build a park in the creature's honor as well, so one could pretty easily make the argument that the only reason this case is talked about is because it brings in money. And I'll admit, the Army's explanation is lacking. Whether or not that's because there's anything worth explaining remains to be seen. This case has been shrouded in mystery for years. I don't think I can give a definitive answer to what happened, but it does seem more likely that the creature was an exhumed corpse than a gray space alien, especially because there's so many disagreeing testimonies, but there were so many sightings that it's difficult to say if any are legitimate or if people were simply jumping on the bandwagon. What I can say is that Roger Lear has an obvious bias throughout these writings. The story is in first person, and it's set up how a novel would be, as opposed to realistic journalism. That's only my opinion. Of course, if you read it, you're free to form your own, but given that he's calling people sad sacks who have any explanation for the course of events, I'm not sure what one could say about his journalistic integrity. Even with that said, though, I do want to cover what those that Roger interviewed have to say about what happened that night, because I do find it pretty interesting. As for the 2 sisters that ran home that night, they were requested to be taken to the exact spot where it occurred. The girls agreed, and he personally was able to investigate the area where the creature was kneeling. He was mystified when he noticed a strange round narrow hole in the ground, about the size of a large pen, at the area where the creature had been crouching. Since there was some inclement weather that had occurred after the event, additional evidence was not obtained, such as footprints or earth markings. My search of the literature concerning this case reports the following episode, pertaining to the mother of the 2 girls who were sisters, Luisa Helena Fatima de Silva. It states she saw an alien creature in Jardim Andare district on January the 20th, and reported a peculiar smell when she went to the park at 4 p.m. I personally questioned Mrs. Silva in reference to this statement, and she denied it. I believe this is an important issue, as rumors of this strange smells have become associated with this case. Yet another rumor has it that Mrs. Silva reported 4 Brazilian men wearing white and cream-colored Armani suits who visited her. The men supposedly offered her a large sum of money to say that her daughters lied about seeing the alien creature. They reportedly showed up at her home when her husband, a bus driver, was at work. They also told her they would return and pay her in cash. It has been reported that they drove a navy blue 1994 Lincoln Continental with a Destino Federal Brasilia license plate. I am currently unable to determine if this statement has a basis in fact. There's another interview following this. Again, I really recommend you check out the book if you're interested in reading more. And I'll give the doctor credit for stating that he isn't quite certain if this is fact or not. There's quite a few questionable pieces here, such as an eyewitness stating in Chapter 6 that the alien stated it felt bad for humans. Around page 75, the doctor admits he can't determine the validity of this testimony, and there is a lot of eyewitness testimony, but there's also so much speculation into the Army and Fire Department having worked together to cover this up, as well as speculation into the alien's actions itself. But I'll end today's video with Robert's summation. It is my unwavering and undoubting belief that this text, being an investigation into the absolute truth of these events, is one of the most important documents of the modern world and should be held in the highest esteem. Never before in the history of UFO investigations has there been such a great number of witnesses who had no relationship to each other and no motive for storytelling, who reported the same events with the same descriptions of the creatures involved. This is far beyond coincidence. Let me be first to point out that there has been a number of great hoaxes previously perpetrated on various UFO researchers and the public in general, with some examples given earlier in this text. However, the Varginha case is no hoax. Of course he would say that because he wrote the book, but what do you think? Is Dr. Lear's research credible? He was a podiatrist, or a foot doctor turned UFO and supernatural researcher that passed away in 2014 at the age of 79. While I think he may be more credible than many conspiracy theorists out there, should we really look into the Varginha case deeper or let it lie and not mess with the military? Maybe it happened too long ago to even find out the truth. But regardless of what the case may be, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. If you have any other UFO or alien encounter cases you want me to explore, let me know that as well. In the meantime, if you like this video, please hit that like button, and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!